Here, take this. Come back tomorrow, okay? The young black girl whispered, her deep brown eyes soft with unspoken empathy as she slipped a crisp $20 bill into the ragged white boy's hand. At just 12, Amara Joseph stood out in her vibrant floral dress amid the bustling Maxwell Street Market in Chicago, where the scent of fresh produce mingled with the chill of lake winds. Why would a homeless boy like Malik Weston seek kindness from someone as poor as her, a girl scraping by on fruit sales? Yet this simple act of compassion sparked a quiet bond that would defy expectations, upending lives and revealing how one small gesture could ignite profound change in a world quick to overlook the vulnerable. Before we dive deeper into this heartwarming tale of redemption and unexpected twists, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. If stories like this inspire you, hit that subscribe button, and share with a friend. It helps spread the magic. Stick around. You won't believe how a simple $20 bill reshaped everything. The sun hung low over Chicago's South Side, casting long shadows across Maxwell Street Market, like fingers reaching for forgotten dreams. It was a place where the air hummed with life, vendors hawking their wares in a symphony of shouts, the sizzle of street food mingling with the earthy scent of fresh produce, and the distant rumble of buses echoing off cracked pavement. Winds off Lake Michigan whipped through the stalls, carrying a chill that seeped into bones no matter the season. Amid this chaotic tapestry stood Amara Joseph, a 12-year-old black girl whose presence was a burst of color in the gray grind of daily survival. Amara wore a vibrant floral dress that day, its bright petals of red and yellow blooming against her deep brown skin like a defiant garden in the concrete jungle. The dress was a hand-me-down from her mother, patched in places but twirling with every quick step she took. Her hair was woven into neat cornrows, ending in small beads that clicked softly as she moved. She was small for her age, barely reaching the height of the wooden crates stacked behind her mother's vegetable stand, but her movements were swift and sure, honed by years of helping out before school. Her deep black eyes held a quiet wisdom, the kind that saw through the noise to the hidden hurts of the world. $2 for the bunch, ma'am, Amara said politely, handing a cluster of crisp greens to an elderly woman. Her voice was soft, laced with the faint lilt of her mother's southern roots, but it carried a steadiness that belied her youth. She pocketed the coins, her fingers brushing against the few bills tucked in her apron, earnings from the morning sales. Money was tight in the Joseph household. Her mother, a single parent scraping by on this modest stall, often reminded her that every penny counted. Yet Amara's heart was bigger than their wallet. She had a gift for noticing the overlooked, for feeling the silent aches that others ignored. As the crowd thinned for a moment, Amara's gaze wandered to the edge of the market, where the stalls gave way to alleyways lined with overflowing dumpsters. That's when she saw him, a boy about her age, curled up like a discarded rag against the cold metal of a trash bin. His skin was pale, almost ghostly under the grime, and his dark brown hair fell in tangled locks over his forehead. He wore a threadbare hoodie, holes worn through at the elbows, in jeans that hung loosely on his gaunt frame. His shoes were mismatched, one sneaker laced with string, the other barely holding together. But it was his eyes that struck her, pale blue like shards of glass reflecting a stormy sky, filled with a wariness that made Amara's chest tighten. He wasn't begging outright, not like some of the regulars who wandered the market with cupped hands and pleading stares. No, this boy, Malik Weston, though she didn't know his name yet, seemed to shrink into himself, as if willing the world to pass him by. Hunger etched lines on his young face, sharper than any child should bear. Amara watched as he shivered against the wind, his thin arms wrapped around his knees. Why here, she wondered. Why seek solace in a place as unforgiving as this market, where survival was a daily battle for everyone? Without a word, Amara reached into her apron pocket. Her fingers closed around a crisp $20 bill, one of the few larger notes from a generous customer earlier. It was more than she should give, more than her mother would approve if she knew. But something in the boy's hollow gaze pulled at her, a silent plea that echoed her own quiet fears of a world that could swallow you whole. She glanced around. No one was watching. Her mother was busy haggling over potatoes with a customer. Stepping lightly, her floral dress fluttering like a flag of hope, Amara approached the boy. He looked up as she neared, his blue eyes widening in surprise, then narrowing in suspicion. "Here," she whispered, extending the bill toward him. Her voice was barely audible over the market's din, but it carried a warmth that cut through the chill. "Take this." Malik hesitated, his hand trembling as he reached out. His fingers brushed hers, cold like ice, and he snatched the money quickly, stuffing it into his pocket as if afraid it might vanish. For a fleeting moment, gratitude flickered in his eyes, softening the hard edges of his fear. But before he could speak, a thunderous voice shattered the fragile exchange. "Hey, you little rat! Get out of here!" The bellow came from across the aisle, where Mr. Jace loomed like a storm cloud. The burly butcher, a white man in his 50s with a grizzled beard and arms thick from years of wielding cleavers, slammed his knife down on the blood-stained block. Thwack! The sound echoed like a gunshot, drawing eyes from nearby stalls. Jace was a fixture at the market, a former veteran who'd seen too much war and too little kindness afterward. Poverty had hardened him, twisting his pain into prejudice. He glared at Malik with undisguised contempt, his small eyes narrowing. "We don't need your kind scavenging around. Go on, scram before I call the cops." Malik bolted upright, panic flashing across his face. The $20 bill tumbled from his pocket in the scramble, landing in the dirt. He didn't stop to grab it. Fear propelled him forward, dodging crates and weaving through the crowd. Amara's heart raced as she watched him flee, his ragged figure disappearing into the alley's shadows. Jace snorted in satisfaction, wiping his hands on his stained apron. Good riddance. Kids like that are nothing but trouble. But Amara wasn't done. Her pulse thundered in her ears, a mix of anger and determination surging through her. She scooped up the fallen bill, dusting it off with care. Glancing to ensure Jace's back was turned, she darted after Malik, her sneakers pounding the pavement. The alley smelled of rotting fruit and exhaust, but she pressed on, spotting him huddled behind another dumpster, gasping for breath. "Wait," she called softly, approaching with open hands. Malik flinched, but she knelt beside him, her floral dress pooling on the grimy ground. Up close, she could see the bruises on his arms, the dirt caked under his nails. "You dropped this." She pressed the 20 into his palm, folding his fingers around it firmly. Her deep eyes met his blue ones, and in that gaze she saw a mirror of her own vulnerabilities. The fear of being unseen, unworthy. "Why?" he murmured, his voice cracking like brittle ice. It was the first word he'd spoken, laced with disbelief. Amara smiled faintly, a small curve of her lips that lit her face like sunshine, breaking through clouds. "Because everyone needs a little help sometimes. Come back tomorrow, okay? I'll be here." Malik nodded slowly, clutching the bill like a lifeline. As Amara stood and returned to the stall, the wind tugged at her dress, whispering secrets of what might come. She didn't know it yet, but this simple act had planted a seed, one that would grow into something extraordinary, binding two souls across divides of color, class, and circumstance. For now, though, the market bustled on, oblivious to the quiet revolution she'd begun. The next morning dawned crisp and unforgiving over Maxwell Street Market, the kind of Chicago day where the lake winds sliced through jackets like knives through butter. Amar arrived early, her floral dress hidden under a worn sweater her mother had knitted, the fabric soft but frayed at the edges. She helped unpack crates of vegetables, plump tomatoes glistening with dew, bunches of greens tied with twine, while her mind wandered back to the boy in the alley. Had he used the money? Would he return? The market stirred to life around her, vendors shouting prices, the sizzle of breakfast burritos from a nearby cart, and the distant honk of traffic weaving through the city's veins. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden hues on the pavement, Amara spotted him. Malik emerged from the shadows of the alley, his steps tentative, like a stray cat testing unfamiliar ground. His pale face was cleaner today, though still etched with exhaustion, and his blue eyes scanned the crowd warily. He approached the stall slowly, hands shoved deep in his hoodie pockets, avoiding eye contact with the bustling shoppers. Amara's heart skipped a beat. She reached into her apron without hesitation, pulling out another $20 bill. fresh from yesterday's earnings, crisp and promising. Here, she whispered, slipping it into his hand as he lingered near the crates. Her fingers brushed his again, warmer this time, less like ice. Malik looked up, surprise flickering in his gaze, but he nodded, a silent thank you that spoke volumes. Before he could slip away, Amara grabbed a ripe apple from the display, its skin a deep red shine under the light. And this, for later. Malik's lips twitched into the ghost of a smile, the first she'd seen. He tucked the apple away and vanished into the throng, leaving Amara with a quiet glow in her chest. It felt right, this small ritual, like mending a tear in the world's fabric, one thread at a time. And so it began. Day after day, Malik returned. The market became their unspoken meeting ground, a routine etched into the rhythm of the stalls. Each morning, as the scent of fresh bread wafted from her mother's oven, a simple cornbread laced with honey, Amara would spot him weaving through the crowd. She'd press the 20 into his palm, her deep eyes meeting his blue ones in a brief, wordless exchange. Sometimes she'd add a little extra, a banana on hot days when the asphalt shimmered with heat, or a slice of that warm cornbread wrapped in foil, its steam carrying the comfort of home. Their interactions grew, subtle as the shifting winds. Malik started lingering longer, murmuring a few words here and there. Thanks, he'd say one day, his voice rough from disuse. Another time, as he bit into an apple she'd given, juice dripping down his chin, he confessed, I haven't eaten like this in weeks. Amara listened more than she spoke, her intuition guiding her. She noticed how his shoulders relaxed in her presence, how his eyes lit up, not just from the food, but from being seen, truly seen, in a city that rushed past the invisible. But not everyone approved. Mr. Jace, with his thunderous presence at the butcher's block, caught wind of the routine quickly. One afternoon, as Malik approached the stall, Jace's voice boomed like a crack of lightning. Back again, eh? You think this market's your personal charity? Get lost, kid. He waved his cleaver menacingly, the blade glinting under the sun, drawing stares from nearby vendors. Malik froze, color draining from his face, but Amara stepped forward, her small frame defiant. He's not bothering anyone, she said firmly, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. Jace snorted, his grizzled beard twitching with disdain. You're too soft, girl. Helping strays like him? He'll just take and take. World ain't kind of fools. He turned back to his meats, muttering under his breath about kids these days and wasting good money. The criticism didn't stop with Jace. Whispers spread through the market like smoke from a grill. A Mexican vendor selling spices leaned over to Amara's mother one day, her voice low. Your girl's got a big heart, but it's foolish. Giving to that white boy? He's not one of us. What if he brings trouble? Others nodded in agreement, calling Amara naive, reckless. She's poor as the rest of us, one said. Why throw away what little we have? Amara's mother, a sturdy woman with calloused hands and a no-nonsense gaze, pulled her aside that evening as they packed up. The sun dipped low, painting the market in amber light, and the air cooled with the promise of night. Baby, I know you mean well, she said, her southern drawl thick with concern. But folks are talking. That money could buy us groceries. And that boy, we don't know his story. Amara looked down at her hands, still dusted with soil from the crates. Mama, he needs it more. I see it in his eyes, like he's starving for more than food. Her mother sighed, pulling her into a hug that smelled of earth and warmth. Just be careful. Kindness is a gift, but it can cost you. Yet Amara didn't waver. Each day as Malik appeared, she felt a spark ignite within her, a quiet rebellion against the market's harsh judgments. She watched him transform subtly. His steps grew surer, his frame less gaunt. One rainy morning, when the pavement slicked with puddles and the wind howled like a wounded animal, Malik arrived soaked to the bone. Amara not only gave him the 20, but slipped him a dry towel from the stall. Stay dry, she murmured. He lingered that day, sharing a rare snippet. My mom's gone. Dad doesn't want me. His voice cracked, but Amara just nodded, offering silent solidarity. The routine became her anchor, a beacon in the daily grind. But tension simmered beneath the surface. Jace's glares intensified, his threats growing bolder. "One more time I see that kid here, I'll chase him out myself," he bellowed one afternoon, slamming his fist on the block. Amara's heart pounded, but she met his eyes with unyielding calm. Inside, doubt crept in. Was she inviting trouble? Yet the light in Malik's eyes, that growing flicker of hope, pushed her forward. As weeks blurred into routine, Amara began to look forward to his visits not just for the giving, but for the connection. Little did she know, this fragile bond was building toward a breaking point. One crisp morning, as the market buzzed with its usual energy, Amara waited by the crates, apple in hand. The minutes stretched, the crowd swelled, but Malik didn't come. The morning after Amara's last exchange with Malik dawned heavy with fog, the kind that rolled in from Lake Michigan like a shroud, muffling the usual clamor of Maxwell Street Market. Amara arrived at the stall earlier than usual, her floral dress swapped for a thicker skirt and sweater against the damp chill. She unpacked the crates methodically, stacking tomatoes in neat pyramids, arranging greens in inviting bundles. But her eyes kept darting to the alley's mouth. The spot where Malik always emerged, that shadowed corner by the dumpster, stood empty. The air carried the familiar scents, fresh soil from the produce, the sharp tang of onions, and the distant fry of breakfast meats from Jace's stall. But without him, it all felt hollow, like a melody missing its rhythm. She waited. Minutes stretched into an hour. Shoppers milled about, haggling over prices, their voices a low buzz that grated on her nerves. "Where are you?" Amara whispered to herself, fingering the edge of her apron where the 20s usually waited. She had one ready, folded crisp and hopeful. Maybe he was late. Maybe the rain from last night had kept him away. But as the sun burned through the fog, revealing the market in sharp relief, doubt crept in like the cold seeping through her shoes. By noon, the emptiness gnawed at her. Amara slipped away from the stall when her mother was distracted by a cluster of customers. "Just checking something, Mama," she called over her shoulder, her voice lighter than she felt. The alley welcomed her with its grim familiarity, puddles reflecting oily rainbows, the stink of rotting peels mingling with exhaust from passing trucks. She scanned the dumpsters, the crates stacked haphazardly, even the chain-link fence bordering the lot. No sign of Malik. His usual hiding spot, that nook behind the overflowing bin, was barren. No huddled figure, no pale face peering out. Panic bubbled up, hot and unfamiliar. Amara's heart pounded as she ventured deeper, her sneakers squelching in mud. "Malik," she called softly, her voice echoing off the brick walls. Nothing. She circled back to the market's edge, weaving through vendors who shot her curious glances. Jace caught her eye from his stall, his cleaver paused mid-chop. "Looking for that stray girl? Told you he'd bolt eventually. They always do." His laugh was a rough bark, laced with satisfaction, but Amara ignored him, her cheeks burning. The afternoon dragged on, a blur of sales and stolen glances toward the alley. Each time a shadow shifted, her hope surged, only to crash when it turned out to be a stray cat or a passing shopper. By evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the market in fiery oranges, exhaustion settled over her like a weight. Amara helped her mother pack up, her movements mechanical. "You all right, baby?" her mother asked, eyeing her daughter's drawn face. Amara nodded, but the lie tasted bitter. That night, sleep evaded her. In their cramped apartment above a noisy diner, Amara lay on her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling cracks that spiderwebbed like her worries. Why hadn't he come? Was he hurt, sick, or worse? Had Jace's threats finally scared him off for good? The whispers from the market echoed in her mind. Foolish, naive. Maybe they were right. Maybe her kindness was just a drop in an ocean of indifference, swallowed without trace. The next day mirrored the first, empty, and the one after. A week blurred into waiting, each morning a ritual of hope dashed by absence. The market bustled on without pause. Jace's booming voice, the spice vendors' chatter, the endless haggling. But for Amara, the world had dimmed. She found herself lingering by the alley more often, her direct gaze scanning every face. One rainy afternoon, as sheets of water drummed on the tin roofs of stalls, She ventured out again, umbrella forgotten in her haste. The alley was a slick mess, puddles pooling like tears. Amara trudged through, her skirt hem soaking up the grime. Near the dumpster, something caught her eye. A scrap of fabric, sodden and muddied, wedged under a crate. She knelt, heedless of the wet ground seeping through her knees, and pulled it free. It was a scarf, thin and worn, the one Malik had often wrapped around his neck against the wind. Gray wool, frayed at the edges, with a faint embroidery and faded thread. They never knew I existed. Amara's breath caught, a sob rising unbidden. She clutched the scarf to her chest, the damp wool cold against her skin, carrying a faint trace of him. Sweat, dirt, and something indefinably boyish. Tears mingled with the rain on her cheeks. "Where did you go?" she whispered, the words lost in the downpour. The embroidery stung like an accusation. Invisible, forgotten. Had her 20s changed anything, or was he just another shadow the city had erased? She stumbled back to the stall, scarf hidden in her apron. Her mother noticed immediately, pulling her into the shelter of the awning. "What's this now?" she asked, wiping Amara's face with a rough cloth. Amara spilled it all. The routine, the giving, the sudden void. Her mother listened, her strong arms enveloping her daughter. "Oh, child, kindness ain't always seen right away. It plants seeds, even in the dark. That boy, wherever he is, you gave him light. Don't you doubt that." Amara nodded, but the ache lingered. She dried the scarf that night, folding it carefully into a drawer, a talisman of what was lost. Days turned to weeks, and the market's rhythm reclaimed her. She still wrote prices on the chalkboard with her elegant script. "Like dreams," her mother said. But the alley's empty spot haunted her, a reminder of fragility in a harsh world. 20 years passed like pages in a weathered book. Maxwell Street Market had changed, stalls modernized slightly, crowds thicker with tourists. But Amara Joseph remained, now 32, at stall number 14. Her cornrows were longer, tied back practically, and her eyes held the depth of experience. Life had brought hardships, her mother's passing, the grind of single-handed survival. Yet she persisted, her hands calloused from crates, her heart still attuned to the unseen. One foggy morning, much like that distant day, Amara unpacked her goods, the scarf, faded but treasured, tucked in her pocket like a secret. Little did she know the past was about to return, stepping out from the shadows in a suit and a Tesla, ready to upend everything once more. Fog clung to the streets of Chicago like a reluctant ghost, much as it had on that fateful morning 2 decades ago when Amara's world had cracked open with absence. Maxwell Street Market had endured the years with stubborn grit, its stalls weathered by time and urban sprawl. The once vibrant chaos now carried a patina of age, faded awnings sagging under rain, crates splintered from endless use, and the pavement etched with cracks like veins on an old hand. Vendors still shouted their wares, the air thick with the mingled aromas of fresh herbs, grilled meats, and the faint metallic tang of city exhaust. But whispers of change rustled through the crowd. Rumors of demolition, of the market being razed for a gleaming tech security center, a fortress of glass and steel that promised jobs but threatened souls. Amara Joseph, now 32, stood at stall number 14, the same spot she'd claimed since her mother's passing 5 years back. Time had sculpted her with subtle grace, her cornrows now cascaded longer, tied back in a practical bun that revealed the fine lines etched around her deep black eyes. Marks of laughter, worry, and unyielding resolve. Her frame had filled out, strong from lifting crates and navigating life's burdens alone, dressed in a simple blouse and jeans that bore the faint stains of soil. The floral dresses of her youth were memories now, replaced by functionality, but her hands still moved with that quick, intuitive grace, arranging vegetables into artful displays. Her chalkboard prices flowed in elegant script. Like dreams, as her mother once said, a quiet nod to the girl she'd been. She tucked the faded scarf deeper into her pocket, a ritual touchstone, its embroidered words a silent mantra. They never knew I existed. 20 years and the ache of Malik's disappearance had dulled to a quiet hum, buried under the demands of survival. Yet on foggy days like this, it resurfaced, a whisper of what-ifs that made her scan the alleys out of habit. The market's fate loomed larger now. Developers circled like vultures, their surveys and blueprints signaling the end. "They'll bulldoze us for progress," Jace grumbled from his stall, his once booming voice now raspy with age, his beard fully silvered. He was softer around the edges these days, regret tempering his old prejudices. But the fight in him lingered. Amara wiped her hands on her apron, serving a regular customer with a warm smile. "Fresh greens today, picked just yesterday." Coins exchanged hands, a meager clink in the tin box. Business was slow. The rumors scared off buyers, and competition from supermarkets gnawed at their edges. She glanced up as a low hum pierced the market's din, a sleek white Tesla gliding to a stop at the curb, its electric purr an alien sound amid the rumble of old trucks. Heads turned. Luxury like that didn't belong here. The door opened with a soft whoosh, and out stepped a man who seemed carved from another world. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his dark suit tailored to perfection, hugging a frame honed by discipline rather than desperation. His brown hair was neatly cropped, his pale blue eyes sharp behind subtle glasses, scanning the stalls with a measured gaze. Malik Weston, though Amara didn't know it yet, moved with the confidence of someone who'd conquered shadows. At 32, he was the embodiment of the American dream reclaimed, CEO of Weston Security Solutions, a tech empire built on innovative locks and surveillance systems that guarded fortunes worldwide. But beneath the polish lurked echoes of the boy. Scars hidden, but the hunger that drove him still burned. He strolled through the market slowly, his polished shoes clicking against the uneven pavement, drawing murmurs from vendors. "Who's that?" someone whispered. "Looks like trouble. Probably scouting for the demo crew." Jace narrowed his eyes, gripping his cleaver a bit tighter. Malik paused at stalls, nodding politely, his expression neutral but his mind racing. The scents assaulted him, earth and spice, triggering fragments of memory, the apple's crisp bite, the warmth of cornbread foil. He hadn't set foot here in years, not since he'd clawed his way from shelters to startups, teaching himself code in library corners, turning pain into firewalls. Now, as representative for the very project threatening the market, guilt twisted in his gut. But this visit wasn't just business, it was pilgrimage. Stall by stall, he drew closer to number 14. Amara felt his approach before she saw him, a prickle at her nape, like the air before a storm. She looked up from stacking cucumbers, her dark eyes meeting his blue ones across the display. Time stuttered. He stopped, frozen mid-step, his breath catching. She was older, yes, stronger, more grounded. But those eyes, that quiet intensity, it was her, the girl who'd seen him when no one else had. Amara tilted her head, a faint frown creasing her brow. The man was striking, out of place in his suit, but something in his gaze wavered, a flicker of vulnerability that tugged at her intuition. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice steady, laced with the same southern warmth. Malik cleared his throat, forcing a professional smile. "Just browsing. These look fresh." He picked up a tomato, turning it in his hand, but his eyes lingered on her face, searching for recognition. None came. How could it? He'd changed, shed the grime, the fear, the boy. But inside, the scar of those days pulsed. Amara nodded, sensing an undercurrent, a depth to him that didn't fit the corporate sheen. "Best in the market, 2 for $1. As she bagged his purchase, their fingers brushed, electric, echoing that first touch long ago. His eyes wavered again, a storm brewing behind the calm. He paid with a 20, waving off the change. "Keep it." The words hung heavy, laden with unspoken weight. Amara arched a brow, pocketing the bill. "Generous. You with the developers?" The question was casual, but her tone held an edge, defensive of her home turf. Malik hesitated, the truth a knot in his throat. "Something like that. Name's Weston. Malik Weston." He extended a hand, his grip firm but searching. "Amara Joseph." She shook it, her calloused palm against his smooth one. A jolt, familiar, yet elusive. The market swirled around them, Jace watching suspiciously, vendors gossiping in hushed tones. Malik lingered, buying more than he needed. An apple, a bunch of greens, prolonging the moment. "This place has history," he said softly, his voice dropping. "Shame if it all goes." Amara's eyes hardened. "History? It's our lives, not some plot for fancy tech." Her words carried the fire of years defended. Malik nodded, guilt flashing briefly. He wanted to say more, to shatter the veil, but the words stuck. Instead, he glanced at his watch. "I'll be back this evening. Maybe we can talk more." A promise, veiled in mystery. As he walked away, Tesla humming to life, Amara watched, the scarf in her pocket suddenly heavy. Who was he really? And why did his eyes feel like echoes? Little did she know, the man in the suit carried her kindness like armor, ready to reveal a truth that would unravel the threads of time. Dusk settled over Maxwell Street Market like a soft veil, the day's clamor fading into the hum of evening cleanup. Golden streetlights flickered to life, casting long shadows across the stalls as vendors packed away their goods. Crates clattering, awnings folding with weary sighs. The air cooled, carrying the lingering sense of overripe fruit and grilled spices, mingled with the distant rumble of Chicago traffic. Amara lingered at stall 14 longer than usual, her hands idly wiping down the chalkboard, erasing the elegant prices that had gone unsold. The encounter with the man in the suit, Malik Weston, gnawed at her thoughts. His eyes, that fleeting vulnerability. It stirred something deep, like a half-remembered dream. The faded scarf in her pocket felt heavier, a silent companion to her unease. She glanced at the alley, now shrouded in twilight, and shook her head. "Foolish," she muttered, echoing the old market whispers. Developers like him were harbingers of loss, not hope. Yet his promise to return echoed in her mind, a puzzle she couldn't quite dismiss. As she slung her bag over her shoulder, ready to head home to her quiet apartment, a figure emerged from the gathering dark, not in a suit this time, but a simple gray hoodie that blended with the shadows. He moved with purpose, a paper bag clutched in one hand, his steps quieter than the Tesla's purr. Amara tensed, her intuition flaring. It was him, Weston, but stripped of the corporate armor, looking almost familiar in the dim light. He approached the stall slowly, his pale blue eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her breath hitch. "Evening," he said, his voice low, carrying a gravelly warmth that cut through the chill. He set the bag on the counter gently, as if it held something fragile. Inside, mangoes peeked out, ripe and golden, their sweet aroma wafting up like a memory of summer. She crossed her arms, wary. "Back already? Thought you'd be off sealing deals." Her tone was guarded, but curiosity softened the edges. Who was this man, really? Malik smiled faintly, a curve of his lips that didn't reach his eyes at first, then deepened into something genuine. He pulled a crisp $20 bill from his pocket, placing it beside the bag. "For the mangoes and something more." Amara's brow furrowed. "I don't need charity." But as she met his gaze, that flicker returned, a depth that tugged at her soul. He leaned against the counter, the hood casting shadows on his face, making him seem younger, vulnerable. "It's not charity, it's repayment. 20 years overdue." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Amara froze, her heart pounding like a drum in the quiet market. "What are you talking about?" Malik took a deep breath, his blue eyes steady but shimmering with unspoken emotion. 20 years ago, right here in this market, a girl in a floral dress saved my life. Every day, with a $20 bill, an apple, a kind word. She saw me when no one else did. His voice cracked slightly, the polished CEO facade crumbling. Amara's hand flew to her mouth, the scarf in her pocket suddenly burning. "No, that boy, Malik?" He nodded, pulling back his hood fully, revealing the man who'd risen from the ashes of that ragged child. "It's me, the one you called back tomorrow, the one who vanished." Tears welled in Amara's eyes, a floodgate breaking after decades. She reached across the counter, her fingers trembling as they touched his arm. Solid, real. You're alive. I searched that alley for weeks. Found your scarf. She pulled it out, the faded embroidery catching the light. They never knew I existed. Malik's face softened, pain and gratitude mingling. I kept that phrase as a shield back then. Felt like truth. He took the scarf gently, his thumb tracing the words. But you knew. You existed for me. He paused, the market's distant echoes fading as he delved into the past. My mother was a black nurse, strong like you, worked double shifts in Southside hospitals. My father, a wealthy white businessman downtown. He got her pregnant, but when she told him, he denied everything. Called me a mistake, a threat to his perfect life. Mom raised me alone until she got sick. Cancer ate her fast. I was 12 when she died. No family, no home. Ended up on the streets, white passing but carrying her blood, which made me an outcast everywhere. Kids called me half-breed. Adults looked away. I was invisible, starving, freezing in those alleys. Amara listened, her deep eyes wide, absorbing every word like rain on parched earth. The pieces clicked, the wariness in his young gaze, the hunger beyond food. I begged sometimes, but pride kept me hidden. Until you. That first 20, it bought me a hot meal, socks for my feet, but more, it gave hope. Every day after, your routine became my lifeline. The cornbread warmed my hands, your whispers warmed my soul. You didn't judge, didn't ask for stories I couldn't tell. You just gave. Tears streamed down Amara's face now, unchecked. I was scared when you stopped coming. Thought the worst. Malik squeezed her hand, his grip firm. I didn't want to leave. But one night, Jace chased me hard. Called the cops. I ran farther than ever. Ended up in a shelter across town. From there, foster homes, odd jobs. But your kindness stuck. It fueled me. Through learning code on library computers, building my first app to secure doors, because I never wanted anyone locked out like I was. Weston Security. It's all because of you. Those 20s, they weren't just money, they were belief. In a world that saw me as trash, you saw a person. The market was nearly empty now, stars peeking through the city haze, but their world shrank to this moment. Amara wiped her eyes, a laugh bubbling through the tears. Look at you now, suit and all. Malik chuckled softly. The suit's for show. This, he gestured to the hoodie, is real. And tomorrow I'll prove how much you meant. This isn't just thanks, it's change. As he left, mango bag in hand, Amara stood rooted, the 20 still on the counter like a bridge across time. The night air whispered promises, and for the first time in years, the empty spot felt filled. The dawn broke over Chicago with a crisp clarity, the fog of yesterday burned away by a sun that promised revelation. Maxwell Street Market stirred to life under its golden gaze. Vendors unfolding awnings and stacking crates with the rote efficiency of survivors. Amara arrived early, her steps lighter than they'd been in years. The faded scarf tucked away like a talisman, now charged with new meaning. The $20 bill from Malik still sat in her pocket, a crisp reminder of the night before, his confession, the mango's sweet scent, the bridge across lost time. Sleep had come fitfully, her mind replaying his words. Tomorrow, I'll prove how much you meant. What did that mean? A gift, a gesture, or something grander, befitting the CEO he'd become? The market buzzed with unusual energy that morning. Whispers rippled through the stalls like wind through leaves. A press conference right here, announced overnight via flyers and social media blasts from Weston Security. Cameras were setting up near the central aisle, reporters milling with notebooks and microphones, their polished shoes clashing with the gritty pavement. Jace, ever the sentinel at his butcher's block, scowled as he sharpened his cleaver. What's this nonsense? That suit from yesterday stirring trouble? His voice carried, drawing nods from skeptical vendors. Amara felt eyes on her, curious, questioning. She busied herself at stall 14, arranging mangoes alongside her usual greens, their golden skins a nod to last night's reunion. By mid-morning, the crowd swelled, locals, media, even city officials in stiff suits. Malik arrived not in his Tesla this time, but on foot, flanked by a small team carrying banners and equipment. He wore a tailored jacket over a simple shirt, bridging his worlds. The boy from the alleys and the man who'd conquered boardrooms. His blue eyes found Amara's across the throng, a silent nod passing between them, laden with promise. She nodded back, her heart racing. Whatever came next, it felt like destiny unfolding. Malik stepped onto a makeshift podium, a stack of crates draped in cloth, microphone in hand. The market hushed, the air thick with anticipation, scents of fresh produce mingling with the metallic tang of expectation. Cameras flashed, reporters leaned in. "Ladies and gentlemen, vendors of Maxwell Street, friends," he began, his voice steady, amplified across the stalls. "I'm Malik Weston, CEO of Weston Security Solutions. Many of you know we're behind the proposed tech center that would replace this market. A project meant for progress, jobs, security, innovation." Murmurs erupted, tense and accusatory. Jace crossed his arms, his grizzled face reddening. "Here it comes, the boot!" someone shouted from the back. Amara gripped her counter, her deep eyes fixed on Malik, trusting the boy she'd known even as doubt flickered. "But today," Malik continued, his tone shifting to something fiercer, more personal, "I'm here to announce a change. We're not demolishing Maxwell Street Market. We're saving it." Gasps rippled through the crowd, a wave of shock that silenced the skeptics. Cameras whirred furiously. "Instead, Weston Security will invest $1 million to renovate this historic space. Modern stalls, better lighting, community hubs, all while preserving its soul. Vendors keep your spots. Rent-free for 5 years. And we'll rename it the Circle of 20, a tribute to the endless loop of kindness that built me." The market erupted. Cheers from some, stunned silence from others. Amara's breath caught, tears pricking her eyes. 1 million? Rent-free? It was unthinkable. A lifeline thrown to a drowning community. Vendors hugged, reporters fired questions. Why the pivot? What's the Circle of 20 mean? Malik held up a hand, his gaze sweeping the crowd, landing briefly on Amara with warmth. "This market isn't just commerce, it's lives intertwined. 20 years ago, as a homeless kid, I was invisible here, starving, scared. But one person saw me, gave me $20 a day, no questions asked. That circle of kindness saved me, turned a broken boy into who I am. Now it's my turn to close the loop." The revelation hung heavy, whispers turning to awe. But not everyone celebrated. Jace stormed forward, his massive frame pushing through the crowd, face twisted in fury. "This is bull. You're that kid, the one I chased off. Now you waltz back like a hero, buying us out with fancy money?" His voice boomed, echoing off the stalls, cleaver forgotten but anger sharp as its blade. "We don't need your pity project. This market survived without suits like you. You're just easing your guilt. Admit it." The crowd tensed, divided. Some nodded with Jace, old resentments bubbling. Others murmured support for the investment. Malik faced him squarely, unflinching, his blue eyes steady. "Guilt? Maybe. But truth? You called me trash back then, Mr. Josh. Kicked at a kid who had nothing. She," he pointed to Amara, drawing all eyes, "called me human. Gave when she had little herself. Your threats drove me away, but her kindness brought me back. This isn't pity, it's justice." Jace faltered, his bluster cracking. The market watched as years of hardness peeled away, revealing the weary man beneath, the veteran haunted by his own demons, poverty's scars twisting into prejudice. I was rough," he admitted gruffly, voice dropping. "Times were hard, but yeah, maybe too rough." A murmur of surprise rippled. Jace, the unyielding, yielding. The community shifted, voices rising in support of Amara. "She's always been the heart here." "About time someone recognized." Amara stepped forward, her voice clear amid the chaos. "This isn't about the past. It's about tomorrow. For all of us." Malik nodded, gratitude shining. The press conference wrapped in a whirlwind, handshakes, photos, plans sketched on the fly. As the crowd dispersed, hope lingered like the sun's warmth. Jace approached Amara quietly, hat in hand. Sorry, girl, for back then and now. She smiled faintly, offering forgiveness in a nod. By afternoon, the market thrummed with new energy, vendors dreaming aloud of renovations, kids buzzing about the circle. Malik pulled Amara aside, his hand on her shoulder. This is just the start. She squeezed his arm, the bond unbreakable. As the day waned, the unthinkable had become real. A market reborn, kindness repaid tenfold. A month had slipped by since Malik's earth-shaking announcement, each day weaving the threads of transformation into Maxwell Street Market's fabric. The initial whirlwind, the cheers echoing off the stalls, the media frenzy that painted the market as a beacon of redemption, had settled into a steady rhythm of renewal. Cranes and workers had descended like benevolent giants, their hammers and drills a symphony of progress. Old awnings were replaced with sturdy canopies that withstood Chicago's fickle winds. Cracked pavement gave way to smooth walkways lined with solar lights that glowed like fireflies at dusk. Vendors' stalls bloomed anew, equipped with modern refrigeration and digital displays. Yet the soul remained untouched. The earthy sense of produce, the banter of neighbors, the pulse of community that had always defined this corner of the city. Amara Joseph stood at the heart of it all, her stall number 14 now a crown jewel under the banner, Amara's Orchard. Kindness grows here. The sign hung proudly, hand-painted in bold letters that echoed her childhood chalkboard dreams, with vines and fruits curling around the words like living hope. Mangoes dominated the display, their golden hues a tribute to that fateful bag, alongside vibrant greens and exotic additions sourced from grateful suppliers. At 32, Amara moved with a quiet authority, her cornrows swept into an elegant twist, her blouse crisp and jeans practical. The renovations had eased her burdens. No more leaky roofs or spoiling stock, but the true change was deeper. A lightness in her step, a glow in her deep black eyes that spoke of burdens lifted. The market, rechristened the Circle of 20, had become more than a place to buy and sell. It was a hub now with community classes in coding, courtesy of Malik's team, and free lunches for kids from nearby shelters. Vendors like the spice seller from Mexico hosted storytelling sessions, sharing tales of resilience that bridged cultures. Even Jace had softened further. His butcher's block now bore a small plaque reading Second Chances, and he'd taken to mentoring young apprentices, his gruff voice tempered by humility. That Weston kid, he was right, he'd admitted one day over coffee with Amara. We all need a hand up sometimes. Weekends brought Malik back, like clockwork, his Tesla parked discreetly at the curb to avoid fanfare. He shed the CEO veneer then, opting for casual shirts and jeans that hearkened to his roots. Their meetings were simple rituals. He'd browse the stalls, chatting with vendors who'd once ignored him, then settle at Amara's Orchard. Mangoes today, she'd ask with a knowing smile, slicing one open to reveal the juicy heart within. They'd sit on stools by the counter, sipping fresh sugarcane juice, cool and sweet, pressed from stalks Amara had added to her inventory. The juice's tang cut through the summer heat, evoking lazy afternoons amid the market's renewed vibrancy. On one such Sunday, as the sun dipped toward the horizon and painted the sky in strokes of orange and pink, Malik arrived with a thoughtful expression. The market thrummed with families, children laughing over free samples, elders swapping stories under new shaded benches. Amara handed him a glass of juice, their fingers brushing in that familiar spark. Busy week? She asked, wiping her hands on her apron. Always, he replied, his blue eyes softening. But this grounds me. They talked easily now, of his company's latest innovations, firewalls inspired by the locks he'd built from nothing, of her plans to expand the orchard with community gardens. The bond forged in silence 2 decades ago had blossomed into a profound friendship, laced with gratitude and shared scars. Malik's voice grew reflective as he peeled a mango, juice dripping like liquid gold. You know, I still dream of those alleys sometimes, cold, empty, but then I wake and I think of you, of how one act rippled out. Amara nodded, her gaze drifting to a group of kids playing nearby. One caught her eye, a skinny boy no older than 12, hovering at the market's edge with wide, wary eyes. His clothes were mismatched, his face smudged with dirt, echoing a ghost from the past. Without a word, Amara reached under the counter, pulling out a $20 bill and a ripe mango. "Hold on," she murmured to Malik, approaching the boy gently. He flinched at first, but her warm smile eased him. "Hungry?" she asked, pressing the money and fruit into his hand. "Come back tomorrow, okay?" The boy's eyes lit up, a tentative nod his thanks before he scampered off. Malik watched, a lump in his throat. "The circle continues," he said softly as she returned. Just then, a curious girl from the playing group tugged at Malik's sleeve, her braids swinging. "Mister, why do you like this fruit stand so much? It's just veggies and stuff." The market hushed slightly around them, vendors pausing to listen, sensing the weight of the moment. Malik knelt to her level, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "Because when the world turned its back on me, when I was hungry and alone like that boy, this place chose to see me. One kind soul gave me hope, and it changed everything." He glanced at Amara, their eyes meeting in shared understanding. The girl beamed, scampering off to share the tale, while the market absorbed the words like fertile soil. As twilight deepened, Amara and Malik lingered, the sugarcane juice forgotten in their hands. The lights flickered on, illuminating "Kindness Grows Here" in a soft glow. For Amara, the orchard wasn't just stalls and signs. It was legacy, a testament to how a single 20 could seed an entire forest of change. Malik squeezed her hand. "We've come full circle." She smiled, feeling the loop close, warmth spreading through her like roots taking hold. In a city of steel and rush, their story stood as proof. Kindness, once planted, grew eternal. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey through Maxwell Street Market, where a single act of kindness sparked a circle of hope that changed lives forever. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What did Amara and Malik's story inspire in you? Share your reflections in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from, and if this tale touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs a spark of hope. Your support keeps these stories alive. Until next time, keep spreading kindness. It grows more than you know. See you soon.